I want to start alternative B, practical chemistry. So alternative B, practical, practical chemistry. So I want to start it. Remember that the specimen they gave for alternative B, practical chemistry, F. F is a mixture, of organic organic compound organic compound called starch, and inorganic compound called called copper sulfate, or you call it copper tetrasulfate 6 sulfate. Do you understand? So the copper F is equals to copper sulfate and that of starch. You grab. So we are going to look at how we can separate these two mixture. So now, what are the reagents can we use in order to separate these two mixture? What I mean by reagent that we can add to this, so that one of this mixture will dissolve, or one of the compound will dissolve. Therefore, the other one will remain insoluble. What are the particular substance that we can use, or compound that we can use in order to separate these two mixture? Let us use water. Water is the one that we are going to use in order to separate these two things, because water will dissolve these two things together. Now, what I mean that water can be used is that, remember that, look at it now, all tetra all tetra oxo sulfate salts are soluble in water, except except salts of barium sulfate, comma, calcium sulfate, and lead sulfate. So these are the three salts that are insoluble in water, but other salts like copper sulfate is soluble in water. Zinc sulfate is soluble in water. And aluminium sulfate, that is aluminium sulfate, is soluble in water. Do you understand? So any compound of sulfate salts that are not in this exception, like barium sulfate, calcium sulfate, lead sulfate, that are not here, it means that that particular compound is soluble in water. You understand? I hope you understand. So in these two salts, have you seen how this one now, we call it, we say that this one is soluble in water, that when you add water to this, then water will dissolve this one, but water cannot dissolve this one. If water can dissolve this one, like when you have uh, when you have a beaker like this, then you pour this sulfate salt and starch here and add water. So when you add water to this guy, this one will dissolve, but this one cannot dissolve. So if this guy can dissolve and this one cannot, therefore it means that we have soluble and insoluble salt that inside it. Do you understand? There are soluble and insoluble. Do you understand? Compound are present in this mixture. Do you understand? So, so far that you have dissolved both, then it will be easy for you to separate these two compounds. Now, how do you separate it? Using what method that we call filtration. Filtration method. That is the method we are going to use to separate these two mixture. Filtration method. And how do filtration method look like? Or how can you use filtration method to separate them? Look at what we call filtration method. That is the practical aspect of it. You have beaker like this. Then you bring a funnel. You bring a funnel. You understand? This is the funnel. You place a funnel like in this beaker like this. Then you bring filter paper. Look at filter paper in circle like this. Then you try to fold this filter paper and make it to look like this funnel. So when you make it to look like this funnel, then you now bring it here and place it in form of like this. In form of like this. Do you understand? So when you place it in form of like that, then you try to pour this solution. Pour this solution here. Then when you pour the solution here, so the filtrate is the one that will pass through the filter paper. So have you seen it? The filtrate will pass through the filter paper. So this one that pass through the filter paper, it is called filtrate. It is called filtrate. While the one that remains at this filter paper is called residue. Residue. So it means that the starch, it is called residue. Starch is the one that remain at the what? The filter paper. Then we now call it what? Residue. Why the filtrate pass through the filter paper, then we now call it filtrate. Have you seen it? So we can now go ahead and discuss about the how to test for the residue and also the filtrate. But I will set a question based on this thing. I will set a question. Let me just drop the video for this one. Then I will set a question that will test for this one and also this one. Do you understand? So let us move.